Paradigm Research Group was established in 1996 to facilitate ways to end government-imposed truth embargo on the facts surrounding an ET presence engaging the human race. Stephen Bassett is the Executive Director of the Paradigm Research Group. He's spoken to audiences around the world and the implications of formal disclosure by world governments, and he joins us now. Hi, Steve.
Dean, it's good to be with you.
Great to have you here. Well, that's going back a fair way, 1996. So what inroads have you made into what is obviously a very, very tough task?
It's not so much inroads that I've made, but there has been a fairly defined movement in this issue, political movement, since the end of the Cold War, starting around 1992. There was people doing some political engagement prior to that, going back 50 years, but the real disclosure movement begins after the Cold War ends. I didn't enter until 96, but over the last 25 years, a lot of progress has been made in educating the people about the reality of the ET presence, educating the people regarding the truth embargo that the government imposed on this reality for national security reasons, by and large, and educating the political class to try to prepare them to actually do something constructive about this, and ultimately to seek the prize. The prize of this advocacy movement is disclosure.
Right.
Which is the formal confirmation by heads of state, not by your uncle up the street, or but by the heads of state. And that has not happened anywhere in the world. But we've come close a couple of times, I think. But history's intervened, which it often does, and set things back. However, I have some optimism regarding 2020.
Okay.
It's a good year for disclosure because, as you know, 2020 means what? Perfect vision.
Perfect vision, exactly. That's what kind of gets me, is that the government imposes a truth embargo on this topic. Aren't they essentially admitting that they believe in the existence of ETs?
Yes. It's not unreasonable to conclude that the enormous effort the government has made to try to undermine this issue and twisted itself in knots clearly indicates that there's something very, very important going on, because if there was no ET presence, the government wouldn't have to do any of that.
No. It
would just be another mythology that the public enjoys. But of course, that's what's going on. Look, the 20th century was amazing, incredibly destructive and violent. The second half of the 20th century was amazing in different ways, but certainly because the ET presence escalated in 1947, and we've been moving forward towards what will be the most profound event in human history. 60 years on, 47. So, so 70 years on, rather. Thousands and thousands of books will be written about this era, this time. And it's in some ways preposterous, but I don't think that most of the people in governance during World War II and thereafter expected what happened. And what happened was ETs manifested and then crashed. And the crash vehicles plus the bodies confirmed, obviously, their presence. And now the government had to deal with that. And they did the best they could, I think, under the circumstances. And they ultimately established an embargo on this, primarily because of the extraordinary time. 47 was an extraordinary year. I believe it was the year that Churchill said that it was an iron curtain across Europe. It was the year that we learned that the Soviets had both they had the atomic bomb secrets. And I think by 47, they knew that they had the secrets regarding the hydrogen bomb. And a third world war was clearly in the works. It was going to be between us and the Soviet Union. It was going to be nuclear, and it was going to go very badly. And that's what they were facing, legitimately so. And then an ET craft or two crashes, and they've got ET bodies. What now? They don't know. And so they said, look, this is going to be classified. This is going to be kept from the public. Has to be.
Right.
It was tough. Unlike the Manhattan Project, They just put it out in the boondocks and don't tell anybody. The ETs are flying around all the time. And so you're trying to hide something that is in plain sight. You're trying to make secret something that's in plain. Very difficult situation. But the people that won the World War II, pretty sharp people, pretty committed, pretty intelligent. They had the full government behind them, and they managed to institute an embargo that is held up even to this day, though it's on its last legs.
Mm-hmm. What has the embargo taught us about governmental abuse and power and secrecy?
It is, the abuse of secrecy is going on, and it's been going on. In the last years of his life, Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan wanted to address that. He didn't have much time. He took a tour, he wrote a book, but didn't even touch the subject. The secrecy problem in America has not even begun to be addressed properly, and it's not going to get addressed in this election. But secrecy is power, and lies are power. So the abuse of power through lying and through secrecy has been endemic over the last 70 years, and justified by the nuclear threat and the arms race, which got worse and worse every year, until there were between 70 and 80,000 nuclear weapons stockpiled and in 8 countries. So the basis for them to announce the extraterrestrial presence simply wasn't there. It only got worse every single year. They didn't have the war they thought they'd have, but they ended up with the Cold War. So once the Cold War ends, then the door opens to possibly move forward. But this is an incredible challenge. And the U.S. had to have the how would you say, the agreement of their allies. Not surprisingly, the allies were quite generous with the United States in this matter, given the nature of what happened in World War II. Mm-hmm. And what other country was the chief bulwark between the West and the Soviet nukes? It was us. And so if we wanted the ET issue embargoed, they were going to go along with it. And they did. Deferred to us, deferred to the United States. The Soviet Union and China had other reasons for simply not getting in that area, not bringing that out. They were authoritarian states, deeply authoritarian, regimental authoritarian government, and they don't want people thinking about other civilizations and non-human intelligence and ETs that don't know Karl Marx from Groucho Marx. They don't want that, and so they had no motivation to bring this out. Now that may be changing. We'll see. But if the Soviet Union wasn't going to say, China wasn't going to say, and the United States and its allies wasn't going to talk about it, it had a good chance to hold up in spite of all of the evidence that accrued, lots of it, masses of it, and the continued sightings in the millions. It held up. So what we've learned is this: secrecy can be abused, and we need to deal with that. Lies can be abused, and we need to deal with that. And propaganda can be abused. Propaganda is a what you call a systemic lie or an institutional lie. Propaganda is capable of convincing people of almost anything. And the truth embargo was essentially propaganda. It wasn't like just a lie. It was a fully broad spectrum program of disinformation, misinformation, intimidation, undermining, denial, evasion, and all of these skills were being honed to a fine edge by the threat of the Soviet nukes. So our intelligence departments got all the money they needed. We created agency after agency. We built underground facilities. We developed advanced technology. And so the skill was all there to also, in addition to dealing with the Soviets, to deal with the ET problem. And they got away with it pretty good, but they're pretty much out of runway. I think the truth embargo won't fly much longer.